Hi, I'm James Headley, and welcome to the Living in Naples channel. Thanks so much for tuning in today. In a number of other episodes here on the channel, I've shown at various times how the boom in housing prices led to those who were considering buying in early 2021, but chose to wait for the market to cool down, ended up incurring the cost of the price appreciation if they eventually purchased. With the Federal Reserve signaling another 50 basis point hike in interest rates at its next meeting, I thought it might be useful to share some key items to be aware of with respect to interest rates and Naples real estate, since there is potentially, or it has been, a cost of waiting associated with interest rates as well. As always, I appreciate you liking, sharing, and subscribing, and let's dive right in with 6 thoughts on interest rates vis-a-vis real estate. First, interest rates directly dictate monthly payments. Of course, clearly and most directly, if you were taking out a mortgage, a higher interest rate is going to mean a costlier monthly payment than a lower one. For example, if you were financing $500,000 of the cost of a second home just a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have expected to pay even 3.5% in most cases. At that 3.5% rate, your monthly mortgage payment on a 30-year conventional mortgage would have been around $2,245 a month. At the time of this recording, financing that same $500,000 on a second home or investment home is likely to come with at least a 5.5% rate, which translates to a monthly payment of almost $2,840. So just due to interest rates' direct impact on your mortgage payment, that same home is going to cost you nearly $7,200 more per year. Secondly, rates are still very reasonable, if not a bargain right now. Yes, while recency bias can make us think that 3% is where rates are supposed to be, historically, the average mortgage rate is closer to 8%. And just before the market crashes of the late 2000s, average mortgage rates were nearly 6.5%. Going back 10 years prior to that, to 1996, they were almost 150 basis points higher. And in 1986, the average mortgage rate was actually over 10%. So yes, we'd all rather have a 3% rate than a 5 or a 6% rate. But I think we'd all agree that we would also prefer either of those to double-digit rates, right? So that brings us to number 3. Interest rates aren't the end-all be-all. Clearly, they have an impact, as we've discussed already, on your mortgage payment, but it pays to keep some perspective. While they may be the single biggest and most obvious driver in most cases of your housing costs, they most certainly aren't the only factor. And it's best to get a picture of your overall housing costs as a starting point for budgeting in general, and your mortgage is just one piece of that equation. Insurance, taxes, association fees, club dues, maintenance, property management fees if you're renting out the investment property, etc., etc. These are all going to contribute to your overall housing costs. And in addition, you'll want to work with an experienced and trusted mortgage broker who can model the advantages and disadvantages of the always initially tempting opportunity to buy down the rate via discount points, among other options. So if you want some suggestions for lenders to contact to discuss this and anything else related to mortgages, I'm happy to put you in touch with a few so that you can shop for the right fit for you. These will all be people that I've worked with in the past successfully. Brings us to number 4. Keeping in mind, again, keeping some perspective that effectively if you opt to rent versus buy, your interest rate is 100%. So even 6 or 7% doesn't look too bad in comparison, right? With rents also skyrocketing as much, if not more, than home prices in many markets recently, I suspect that for those of you that might be looking at this as a choice between renting, whether that be short-term or long-term, primary or secondary residence, buying is going to come out on top when you get into the numbers. Number 5, all of what I've said prior to this point applies to really interest rates across any real estate market, but I want to speak specifically about the Southwest Florida cash buyer market, and I should say cash buyer markets. While the majority of buyers that I've worked with and the overall numbers qualitatively and quantitatively would say that most buyers are in Florida, in Southwest Florida, are cash buyers, can be a bit of a misnomer. Yes, there are a lot of buyers in Naples and Marco who can write a check and will write a check for that condo or home purchase. But there are also a lot of so-called cash buyers who are in fact financing some portion of the cost of their Florida home on the back end, as it were. Whether that's the case of these buyers are writing cash offers to make those offers more attractive, because they know they'll get the desired loan and don't require any sort of financing contingency, or if they're perhaps using a home equity loan on a primary residence to finance the purchase of a second home or investment home in Southwest Florida. There are a meaningful number of cash buyers when you add up these and other ways that this is coming into play in the Southwest Florida real estate market that have more reason to be more interest rate sensitive than a true cash buyer would be. And lastly, as mortgage rates go up, keep in mind that other interest rates will as well. And these can have an indirect impact on the real estate market. As just one example, higher interest rates often correlate with weaker performance in equities in the stock market. I don't know about you, but I haven't loved my returns for the first 4 months or so of 2022. So weakened or at least not double-digit growth in portfolios might mean a little less expendable income to invest in a new home in the Naples Marco area. So what's this all mean big picture? I might have taken a bunch of econ and finance courses in my life, but it'd be folly for me to try to predict what the real estate market is going to look like in 6 to 12 months. I can give you my perspective on it and have elsewhere and a bit here, but at the end of the day, I could just simply say that the indicators that we've talked about today I would probably place my bet on a somewhat less frothy market, given the way that higher interest rates can negatively impact real estate values and a real estate market in general. That said, until there's a greater balance between supply and demand in the Naples area, I wouldn't expect any significant slowdowns until that occurs. Ultimately, will rising rates be enough to reduce demand enough to stop the escalating prices? Will more sellers see this as a potential peak and opt to cash out? Only time will tell, but I hope this video at least provides some perspective on why these things might happen and what might happen, as well as providing you with additional information in general that can help you as you consider buying or selling a home in this recently unprecedented era of rising interest rates. As always, I'd love the opportunity to speak with you about your particular circumstances and hopefully be of help with you. Of course, as always, please do like, subscribe, and share, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in.